Hello Steamians, welcome back. I'm Bucky Dirtle, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial today on Oscillator 2 in the software synthesizer Helm. Now Oscillator 2 and Oscillator 1, they work together. They're two of the four sound generators in Helm. But Oscillator 1 and Oscillator 2 are kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole sound synthesis that you'll be doing in Helm. Now, if you notice when we start Helm first, these two oscillators are set at the same saw down waveform. So let me just show you that. So you can hear that saw down waveform. It's a nice waveform. So both of them are the same. Oscillator 1, in the last tutorial, I showed you how to manipulate the sound, the waveform in Oscillator 1 by using this top bar. And you can slide it back and forth and it will give you the different sound forms. Now in another video I showed you how to use a mixer. Right now I'm going to take Oscillator 2 and I'm going to turn it down. So now all we're going to hear is Oscillator 1. So that's Oscillator 1. And you can see in the oscilloscope at the top center, you can see we can get a picture of what our wave looks like with every key that I press. Now, Oscillator 2 is set to a different waveform. This is a down saw. So let me just turn that guy up and turn down Oscillator 1. You can hear it's the same pitch, but it's a different sound. And you can see in the oscilloscope in the center, it tells us it shows us what our sound looks like. Now, if I put both up at the same time in my mixer, we'll hear both of those oscillators at the same time, both producing completely different waveforms. Now just listen to it. I'm going to take down Oscillator 1. And you can hear Oscillator 1. There's our Oscillator 1 right here. And here's Oscillator 2. So when you combine the two sounds together, it gives you a new sound. And you can see in our oscilloscope in the center top, it gives us a new sound shape. Now if I change these waveforms, it's a different sound again. This one now is a triangle wave. And my Oscillator 2 is at down saw. Let's change my oscillator to, let's try a square wave. So now my Oscillator 1 is a saw, and my Oscillator 2 is a square. Let's see what they sound like separately. This is my saw, and this is my square. So we combine those sounds together to get us a certain timbre. And we can change it again, and again, and again. And as you combine the sounds, you're going to get different sounds, different timbres by mixing and matching. Okay, so you can see we get different sounds by combining the two different waveforms. And depending on how much we bring in each of the oscillators, we're going to get different tone, get a different timbre. So that's the basis of the two oscillators. I want to show you another thing. Last video, when I went over Oscillator 1, I talked about this unison feature right here. Now unison, what it does is it takes the sound from one oscillator and it duplicates it. So if I click on it once and bring it to 3, right there, now I have 3 voices playing the same tone. So let me just turn down number 1, so you only hear turn on number 2, so you only hear number 1. Okay, so now that's 3 playing that saw, 3 oscillators. So if I take the the cents here, right now it was on 10. If I take it down to 0 and play, they'll be exactly the same. Okay, that's 3 oscillators playing identical sound. If I move that cents up to, say, 20, for example, yeah, 20. What that's going to do is it's going to be the oscillator in the middle will be playing exactly the right note, like an in-tune C. The oscillator 1 will be playing, or let's say this is duplicated oscillator. So one oscillator will be playing 10 cents below the note, and one oscillator will be playing 10 cents above the note. So you have 3 different tones from the same oscillator. Now I'm not hearing oscillator 2 right now. Oscillator 2, you can see in the mixer is turned down. But if I play this note, you can hear the notes they're wobbling because they're out of tune with each other. So if I make that note more out of tune, it becomes more pronounced. But you can hear, now you're starting to sound like 1980s synthesizers. You know, because we're taking that oscillator 1 and we're duplicating the oscillators, and we are putting each one of those a little bit out of tune, so it makes a kind of a shimmer to it. Okay, I'm going to turn this back to 1, so it's not. We only have 1 oscillator now per oscillator, 1 voice per oscillator. Now I'm going to turn up number 2 again. Now I'm going to leave that because both of the oscillators have that feature, that unison feature, where you can add more voices per oscillator. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just play oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And let's put both on a sine wave. Okay, now they're both identical, and they're both at the same volume level. On our transpose and tune on the left for oscillator 1 and on the right for oscillator 2, these allow us to take each oscillator and put it a little bit out of tune or a lot out of tune. So let's just, if I do this, I'm playing the same note. If I move down 1, now oscillator 1 is playing 1 semitone low. It's playing a B, and oscillator 2 is playing a C. If I go down 1 more, now oscillator 1 is playing a B flat, oscillator 2 is playing a C. But I'm holding down 1 key. I'm gonna. You see, you can go way. You can do whatever you want. Some pretty cool effects. And then whatever note I play, you can see down on the keyboard in the bottom, I'm only playing 1 note, but 1 oscillator is playing a little bit different note than the key that's being played. Oscillator 2 is playing the right note, oscillator 1 is playing the detuned note. If I want to go back to 0, I double click on the transpose button and we're back in tune again. And I can do the same with oscillator 2. Like that. So, and then also the tune, I mentioned this in the last video, the tune lets us go up by cents. So it's only up by a little bit, not quite a semitone. So oscillator 2 now is a few cents above the note. Oscillator 1 is playing the note it's supposed to play. So that lets us be able to have more control over the sounds that we're producing and what's making up the sounds. So we're not just like taking instant cake mix and making a cake. We are now choosing our eggs carefully and choosing our flour carefully and how much of this and how much of that do we want. I mean, we have full control over our sound. Now, if I take that, what I just did, and I change my waveform, so now I have a sound wave, a sine wave, on oscillator 1, and I have a saw wave in oscillator 2, and oscillator 2 is a few cents out of tune. So it's getting a different sound now than we had before. If I put oscillator 2 back in tune, let's try it again out of tune. See, so I have full control over it. It's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is oscillator 2. And it's the way that oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 interact with each other. Now, we didn't talk about the mod wheel in the middle. We'll talk about that another time. We didn't talk about a lot of the other components in here, but these are the first 2 main sound generators in Helm. And you should spend quite a bit of time playing with both of those to try to find out what they do. You know, what can you do to make the sound that you want it to do? And you'll be surprised. You'll come up with some really, really interesting sounds. And when you do find the sound you want, make note of what you did so that you can come back later and you can reprogram it to be exactly what you wanted, or save it. And we'll talk about that another time too. But keep track of what you do so that you may find a cool sound you want to reproduce at a later date. You'll be able to do that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to check out some more of my other tutorials and lots of tutorials on Utopian and Steemit. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the Steemit chats or on the PAL Discord. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Good luck with your music, and I'll see you soon.